Just recently, I had the immense pleasure of shooting a video with the infamous Pete Cohen. Pete is one of the most impactful UK coaches. He was the in-house coach on GMTV morning show, which is one of the biggest morning shows in the UK at the time. He's author of over 20 self-development books. He's worked with sports personalities like Ronnie O'Sullivan, helping Ronnie win his second snooker world title. He's worked with the British Olympic athletic team. He's worked with Arsenal Football Club, and he is a keynote speaker at events around the world. And in this video, we talked about how we came to work together and also the importance of learning how to market our coaching services. I hope you enjoy. The landscape has changed. The landscape used to be, here's a free report, now buy my coaching program. Here's a series of 3 videos, now buy my coaching program. Here's a webinar. That isn't work. It's still working, but nowhere near as well. Number one, because everybody's doing it. But number 2, because the amount of skepticism has gone through the roof and the amount of trust has gone down. So we need to get on the other side of that curve. And the only way we do that is by proving to people that we can help transform their lives by transforming their lives before they become a client.
Paul, happy beautiful day.
Happy beautiful day, Pete.
What's going on? What's happening in Paul's world?
Well, it was more exciting than our conversation last week. Last week I bought a microwave at the weekend.
Yeah. What about this weekend?
I cleared out the garage.
Nice. Well, I had a good weekend. I think as you well know, I was in Spain. I was emceeing an event, and it's great when I observe myself a lot more than I used to. I think there's a big difference between observing yourself and being critical of self. When I observe myself, I just look at what I'm doing, and when I was critical of myself, I was, I'd be judging. I wouldn't really be there. I'd be giving myself a hard time. But I had a great weekend doing what I love, of which you have seen me do that for more than half of my life. How long have we known each other, Paul? Where did we meet?
I want to say it's 1996.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at a wonderful little independent gym in Cheltenham called, at the time, Chapel Rock, wasn't it?
It was called Chapel Rock. Yeah, I was already working at another gym, and someone approached me to go and work there. I don't know who it was, but I'm so glad I did. And I was teaching a boxercise class, and in rocked you. And boy, did you have some moves. You had some boxing moves on you. Why was that?
Oh, yes. So that's right. It was a boxercise class. You were teaching that. It was a Friday night. And I remembered that I wanted to join that gym just to get to know some people because I've recently moved to Cheltenham. So I see that in the timetable, there's this boxercise class. So I've been boxing since I was 16. 25 amateur fights, went on to become an England boxing qualified coach. But back then I got into your class just because I wanted to do some exercise on a Friday. So, rocked up and there you were.
Yeah, I loved that class. I loved teaching. There was something wonderful about taking people on a journey for a class that in most cases was about an hour, where you'd work really hard and you'd play some loud music, and you'd have this. There's actually there's something that is known as a collective effervescent. You know, like if you take a Barocca or Alka-Seltzer, fizzes. When you exercise, you fizz, but when you're around other people that are also fizzing, it's known as a collective effervescent. So if you didn't know that, you know now.
I didn't know that. Yeah, and I suppose the opposite's true as well, isn't it? If people aren't fizzing.
Yeah, they're not, which is where a lot of people are at. They're not realizing they're not fizzing, and that's why it's worth paying the price of exercise, I think, because you get to fizz, But enough fizzing. Paul, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so when we met, I was working at the time at a local IT company in the South. I don't know how I got that job, but I managed to get this job in the sales department. Thought I was quite good at it, did a few deals. And then one day I was called into the office and told by my manager that the company I was working for was being taken over by a competitor, and they were letting all of the sales and marketing people go, including me. So obviously I wasn't that good. So, of course, I had a mortgage and bills to pay. So, looking through the newspaper, looking for jobs. And then one day I got a phone call from Anthony. So it was kind of in the same way as you were offered to go and teach a class at Chapel Rock. Anthony said, look, I understand that you dance salsa, don't you? And I said, yeah. He says, well, we're looking to revamp the timetable. Do you want to come down and start teaching salsa? So I thought, well, I know how to dance it, but I don't know how to teach it because they're two different skill sets, right?
Yeah.
So, but I figured, well, I could do with the money. So I said yes. And that's kind of where we met. And it's interesting because what I've kind of come to figure out in my later years is that it's good to say yes to things to start off with, because if you've got nothing on your plate and you're thinking of something new to do, just say yes at opportunities, even if you think it might not be something that you want to do long term, because quite often it takes you down this different path, completely different to the path you started on. And that's kind of what happened with me.
Well, if we go back a few steps, tell us, why did you take up salsa in the first place?
So I took up salsa because when I first started boxing, I had this great coach called Chris Pierce. And he said, Paul, you know how to throw a punch, but your footwork is shocking. You should take up dance classes. And bear in mind, this was back in the 80s. And back then, that would have been a weird suggestion to make, because boxing and dancing are like, people think they're opposites. They're actually opposites of the same coin. So that kind of sowed the seed. If you look at today's boxing scene, you've got, as you know, some of the greatest pound for pound boxers, Usyk, Lomachenko. They all are great dancers. They took up Ukrainian dance classes to improve their feet. So that's kind of what got me into dance. I saw a poster in Chapel Rock by a joint friend of ours, Lincoln, who was teaching Sarot classes. I decided to join those classes, and that then led to dance and salsa.
Isn't that weird? Well, first off, Muhammad Ali was also a great dancer. Bruce Lee was a great ballroom dancer. And often when you look at what great people are doing, they're often doing what everyone else isn't doing. And I think that's part of who you are, Paul, was, you are a great business person, but you're a brilliant marketer. I've got to know you and work with you and see how you do marketing in this new world that we live in. You're always trying to figure things out and try to get the best result and do it in the most authentic way. And we had great success when we were working together, when I needed some help with marketing what I do. For so many years, I didn't have to sell what I did because it sold itself. I was so fortunate in the career that I had that people were knocking on my door asking to publish books that I hadn't even written. People were asking me to make TV programs and I'd never even presented before. I had the world at my feet, but that didn't last forever. And but it's interesting when you talk about Lincoln, because I forgot that Lincoln Bryden was the one who showed you the way to learn to dance, to teach, to end up teaching. But the same for me. If it wasn't for Lincoln, I don't think I would have done my exercise to music qualification, because we were at university together. I knew him before I went to Cheltenham. Cheltenham is where I did my degree, and that's where I met you. I met Lincoln. We were working in the indoor cricket stadium in Bruce Grove in London, and I'd been turned down from all of the universities and polytechnics, and he'd got a place at this college. It's funny, we were talking about this place, Chapel Rock, where we both met, which was formerly a chapel, where I was teaching classes, and you saw that poster, and that's where I started my weight loss program at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, 1 hour before the gym closed, with 4 people, and after 1 week there was only 3. But I carried that on and carried it on, and eventually, long story short, it was bought by Bupa in 2003 for a couple of million, and that completely changed the course of my life. But our paths have crossed in and out throughout the last, dare I say, 24, 28 years, something like that. Crazy. How did you get into marketing?
Right, so I've kind of got a similar. Our story is sort of a parallel for a little while, aren't they? And then they sort of do this, and then they come back together again. So, where you started your weight loss classes downstairs, I was teaching salsa on the middle floor because I took up Anthony on his offer of teaching these classes. And my first class had 5 people. I think that's okay. It's just a start. It'll catch on. And then following week 4, and then 4. And so I figured, okay, this isn't really working. And I remember one day I was looking through the paper looking for a job, and I saw this advert which said, come and attend our day-long business summit that teaches businesses how to market. I'm thinking, well, maybe that's got my name on it. So I went along, and a lady there said, and this has stayed with me ever since. I can't remember anything else that happened that day or anything else that was taught, but this one thing stayed with me. And she said, no matter what business you're in, you have to make marketing your number one business. So if you're a plumber, you have to make the marketing of your plumbing business your number one business. Not the plumbing, the marketing of the plumbing. She said, if you're a coach, you have to make the marketing of your coaching business. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not a coach, but I'm a teacher. It wasn't until a couple of years later that I took my coaching qualifications. So I thought, okay, I need to learn marketing. And so I went out and I bought a book called the Guerrilla Marketing. I think it was the 7th or 8th series. Read the book, applied everything in that book, and executed on it. And then the numbers started to increase and increase and increase. And then literally within the space of 6 months, we'd opened up 2 more classes when we were teaching 1,000 people a month and no longer needed to get a job. So, but it was all because I learned how to market. And not only that, I executed on what I learned. Not very good to begin with, not very well, but you don't have to be great to start, do you? But you do need to start at some point.
Yeah, and you have to be prepared to suck at what you do. And, we often speak about the imposter syndrome, which is different people have different ideas of what that actually means. But what does imposter syndrome mean to you?
I'm not good enough. It really is. It's simple as that. And I think if you look at all beliefs that don't support us, whether it's the need to be perfect, or anything, the underlying one is I'm not good enough. And for me, that's my interpretation of imposter syndrome. And it's interesting because we were talking the other day about I think it was the David Beckham Netflix series.
Yeah.
The other thing I did this weekend is I watched the Robbie Williams Netflix series. Just incredible. For a guy who had so much success, number one hit after number one hit, 80,000 people, audiences, he got a hard time off the British press back in those days. I think it was because of his big ego. In the UK, we like humility, but he read his own press, and that gave him the belief that he wasn't good enough, even at that massively high level. And that had a huge impact on his future. So it's just interesting that the imposter syndrome thing, the feeling of not being good enough, it kind of stays with us.
It's interesting because I would say David Beckham, he knew who he was. And that's why he could handle all of that crap, the whole world hating him, that kick of the people to remember the World Cup where he got sent off against Argentina. And obviously it was difficult. And he had great people around him, but I think he had a stronger sense of who he was. So where he was circumstantial and was going to change. With Robbie Williams, I think he didn't know who he was, and so everything was always in question. And that's why his mental health, I think, is, to get to know who you are and the gifts and the talents that you have is not easy. And I've often questioned who I was, but I suppose the older I've got, the less I question it. I know who I am. And what's happened to me over the last few months with my wife passing away, that's also made me realize even more who the hell I am. And, I think one of the reasons why we've always got on so well is I think we're quite similar in terms of authenticity, people that just genuinely want to make a difference. And I love the way that you worked out how to market your salsa, because I wonder how many people have been to your salsa classes and it's changed their life. How many people they've gone away, they've had that collective effervescence and they're getting better at something, Because you've not just done it in person, you've also done it online as well, right?
Yeah, so we've taught over 11,000 people to dance salsa within Charlton and surrounding areas. They don't all turn up on a Monday night anymore, but enough for a party. I think we've had 40 weddings, lots of children as a result of people who have come to salsa. None of the children have been named Paul, which I'm a little bit resentful about. But, no, it's certainly made an impact in people's lives, and that was really that was my underlying reason to continue with it.
But you also bought it online with Salsa Squad, right? But you created that to help people learn salsa quicker.
Yeah. So what happened is I created Salsa Squad, which is the in-person classes, the thing that we did at Chapel Rock, and then eventually 2 other classes. But after I finished reading Guerrilla Marketing, I started reading The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
Now that's a cult classic, but back in those days, it was pretty much a new release. And he said something in the book that, again, struck a chord. It was, if you have a service, you're kind of limited. You're limited in terms of growth, because like with the salsa classes, for example, and I suppose with your weight loss classes that you were doing downstairs and then maybe upstairs in one of the rooms, we're limited by how many hours we can actually spend. We're exchanging time for money. So what he said is that, he actually gave the example is, if you provide this service, can you create an online course around that service so that that course can impact people's lives, generate revenue without you needing to be there. So that's when I went on to create Cyber Salsa, which is, in effect, it was everything that we taught in our beginners and level 2 syllabus in the live classes, just put online.
Yeah, it's amazing that you did that, because you did that at a time where, it was a real novelty to create online courses. And now it's like, who hasn't got an online course? It's like, the world has changed so much in terms of, marketing. And I think that's where I came to you, because I found myself in a place where I couldn't trade really anymore on the back of, look what I've done, but I wanted to have more impact. Do you remember how that conversation started when I came to you and said, Paul, I want you to do for me what you did for Cyber Salsa?
Yeah, totally. So we got to know each other at Chapel Rock, and then we I didn't see you again.
I left. I was there for a few years, and then I left and went back to London. And then that's, it's almost like I went to London to find my fame and fortune, which I kind of did, TV, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, do you remember that conversation when I came to you?
Yeah. So you were now the in-house coach on GMTV, which, if people don't know, it was at the time one of the biggest morning shows in the country. It's massive. And you were the in-house coach who would help people overcome limiting beliefs and phobias and help them with weight loss. And I didn't know this. It wasn't until Joe Jones said to me, do you know that Pete Cohen's on GMTV? I said, I didn't know that. I never used to watch morning TV, but so it was amazing. And then, of course, what I didn't know is that I'd been building Cyber Salsa, and kind of, although I'd learned how to market the in-person classes, having an online course was a completely different marketing methodology. So then I had to sort of realize that I had a missing skill set. It's interesting because sometimes when things aren't working business-wise, it's not a business problem, it's just a skill problem. So then I started investing money in courses and coaching programs and mentors to help me understand how to market an online course. And in the same way as I executed on what I had to learn to improve my live classes, the same thing started to happen with the online classes, not straight away, immediately. It was, things didn't work, but that's often the way. And so, but then eventually it did work. And I think you'd been keeping a little eye on what was going on with Cyber Salsa. And one day you rang me up and you said, "Hey, Paul, it's Pete." And I said, I couldn't believe Pete Cohen was on the phone, because for me, you'd suddenly gone up there in the stratosphere in terms of your fame. And you said, look, I want you to do for my weight loss guru program what you've done with Cyber Salsa. And so I said, okay, let's chat. Even though at the time it was weird, because imposter syndrome kicked in at that very point.
Well, I had no idea. You hit it well. because I had no idea. You just came across as someone very confident who knew exactly what they were doing. But I had imposter syndrome about whether we could actually do it. That I could do it in a way, especially that you were suggesting. And I think the other thing we've always had in common was personal development. When I met you, you were doing network marketing in Amway, and you never pushed it on anyone I knew. You just would literally, if you thought, you must have thought, if you thought it was appropriate to have that conversation, you would. But what I could really see about you was you're a lover of, you being a lover of real personal development, of listening to tapes. That's how long ago it was, with people like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. And, I also had that love as well. And I took that love and that learning and I put it into the weight loss program that I was running, because it was really about behavioral change. How important do you think it is for people to work on themselves and their own personal development?
Well, it's interesting because at school, I never read any books. I couldn't see the point in reading. And I only read 2 books, and that was Striker. And I read that book twice. It was a story about it was a football story, basically.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got into network marketing, there was 2 sides to the business. There was the build your network side, but there was also the personal development side, because they realized that the size of your business would never outgrow your personal development. And it's so true. So I thought, oh God, no, books. Oh God. So anyway, we had the first book that we were given was a book called Magic of Thinking Big, which again is an all-time classic. But we were only told to read 3 chapters. And the first chapter was on excusitis.
Yeah.
And I read that chapter and I could feel myself change from the inside out.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to self-development, and from there I just became hooked on it. I became a self-development junkie.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've been able to move through the challenges along the way, and one of them is the imposter syndrome, the excusitis, and I suppose in people listening to this, watching this, maybe for you also to wake up to the reality that you're not alone, that it's almost quite normal to have that, because you're an imposter because you don't know how to do something. It's almost normal, I would say, to feel that. But what I love about what you did with me, and what you've done with many other people, is help me market what I do so that people want to buy it, but also help people get results. Do you want to share with us what you remember about what we did? Because we did a couple of projects together, and then it was so successful, we repeated it 6 times. Do you just want to share with your recollection on what we did?
Yeah, so first of all, we worked on the Weight Loss Guru course, which, if I remember rightly, was a £97 course.
Yeah.
And it was basically a distillation of everything that you had learned over the years about not only what to eat and how to do exercise, but more importantly, your unique thing was mindset and helping people change their relationship with food. So we looked at the product, and the product was awesome, but it just needed a marketing system at the front of it to bring people in. The interesting thing is, because of who you are and what you'd done, you'd built up a massive audience. I think at the time you had 13,000 followers on Twitter.
Yeah, something like that. I think 11. I think I've still got the same amount. Yeah, a massive following on Twitter, Facebook, a fairly extensive database. But I had no idea of how to make the most of that. It was almost like it happened by chance, as opposed to, didn't really have a clue what I was doing, because I was never taught in marketing and content strategy, or, it's just not my thing. So I had all of these assets, but no way of marketing them. And we actually created something, I think it was called the Jumpstart Your Diet, wasn't it? That was the freebie. Wasn't that the thing that we gave away for free?
Yeah. So what we did with the online course, it's interesting because you built up this massive audience, and I know that a lot of those people came to you. They found Pete Cohen because of who you were on TV and all of the books that you've written. But you'd built that audience and that following, and then it was just a case of giving an offer to those people who were already knew Pete Cohen. They already liked you. They already knew. They already trusted you because of the credibility and the authority that you'd shown on TV and through your books. And we just made them an offer. But I I think where a lot of people in marketing go wrong is they go into the offer too soon. It's like, here's my weight loss guru program at £97, buy it. But I think we did back in those days what my focus is very much is on these days, even more so. And that is not just to provide value in advance, which is what everybody talks about at the moment, but to actually provide a transformation in advance. And that's what we did with Weight Loss Guru. We had a Kickstart guide. It was actually a series of 3 videos where you would share some really powerful transformational strategies and concepts and mindset shifts. Those 3 videos alone would have given people a massive aha moment. So that was a transformation in advance. And at the end of those 3 videos, there was an offer. And that offer converted incredibly well for your online program because you'd already built up the trust factor. You'd already created a transformation in the people that you were looking to serve before you even made them an offer. So it's almost like delay the offer, delay it, provide as much transformation as you can, and then offer something that's of value, that's in line with the transformation you've already provided.
It's funny because I'd like to think I've learned, and I have, but I've went from one extreme to the other in doing that to then creating my 30-day Kickstart program, which is free. And that offers huge transformation. I mean, like beyond anything I've ever put together. But the reality is that most people won't complete something that is 30 days. It's too long and they haven't paid for. Sometimes when you don't pay for something, there's no value there for people. That's why I think marketing it's an art, it's a science. And I know one of the areas that you're so committed is to helping coaches, and I want to shine a big light on the work that you do because the difference it made for me and the difference it's made for other people. I want people to know that there's someone here who's the real deal. I get contacted by marketers pretty much every day, predominantly on Instagram and LinkedIn, people telling me, can you handle another 20 clients a week? Can you handle an extra £10,000 in your business? And they're all the same. And I'm sure there's good intention, but I wonder genuinely how many of those people that are offering that service have actually really helped people get their intent behind their content and then get a strategy of marketing in place to start growing their business. Let's just touch on then. Well, we did that and that was successful, but then you were on at me about doing a group coaching program and charging, a substantial amount of money. And I remember thinking, no, that can't be done. But again, I don't know. There's something in me that went, well, he might be wrong. He might be right. I might be wrong. I might be right. But I'm still going to give it a go. Just remind me and remind our listeners what we did and the impact of that.
Yeah. So first of all, on that point, Pete, from having worked with you for many, many, many years now, and one of the things I've loved about working with you is you're just open-minded to other ideas, and you don't let your own preconceived ideas get in the way of new ones.
Well, part of the reason for that is I've been wrong so many bloody times. Honestly, I've been wrong so many times, especially about marketing. So that's one of the main reasons. But yeah, so sorry, go on, carry on.
But what a massive, what a wonderful belief system that is to have, And I think that the older I get, the more I realised, it's almost best not to have a fixed opinion on anything, unless somebody's pointing a gun at you and they say there's no bullets in it, and there's one bullet, then disagree.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I actually don't know anything. Let's be open-minded to all sorts of different points of view. So we've been promoting the online program, and I think we 10x sales of that pretty much overnight with this new front end offer. But I'd actually, in learning how to market, I'd been part of several group coaching programs, and I got so much from the group aspect of it. The accountability, not just to the coach, but to the other people in the group, the insights from other people who had taken part in the group, the inspiration from the people who had got results. I'm thinking we could really apply this to the weight loss offer. So we sat down and we basically together we worked on a way that we could offer your strategy for weight loss, your step-by-step process, helping somebody get from here to here, like not happy to happy, over a 6-week period, and coach people online once a week in groups, and as well as that, put them into a nurturing community whereby that accountability and insights and inspiration and belonging can all kick in. And that was when Pete Cohen's Inner Circle was born.
Yeah, and I was looking at some videos on Vimeo the other day, which is where we used to put the videos up, and I saw all of those videos, and we did 6 Inner Circle courses, and the most important thing was the transformation that people had, but also the money that we made. I mean, we were talking proper money, and when we think about what is it worth to people to make real change in their life? Well, one of the things I have learned is that what we're offering people is life-changing, and it is priceless. Not everyone sees it that way, but I think that's part of knowing, again, who you are. I think a lot of coaches specifically, and people that sell things, they often lack confidence and think that, well, if it's successful, then I'll learn to feel better about myself. When really you've got to kind of reverse engineer this. You've got to see what you're offering people and what that is actually worth. But then that was so successful. Then we kind of went our separate ways again. And then you also helped me when I said I want to start off doing some one-to-one coaching. And we ended up selling one-to-one coaching for, I think it was £3,000 for 3 sessions. And again, it was all about how we marketed that to people. And often when people pay, as Russell Brunson is a very well-known marketer would say, when people pay more, they pay more attention because they're more invested into it. And again, I don't think I would have done that on my own. It was only literally because you encouraged me to do that. And I'm so glad that you did, because again, made money, but it was the results that people got. Because I remember the people I did it with. It was life-changing. So big thanks once again to you, my friend, for that.
No, it's interesting with the money side of things. I think one of the biggest challenges that innately we have as coaches is we don't necessarily feel comfortable charging appropriate prices for our service because we don't see the value of it. I call it the coach's curse. We spent years and years and years studying a topic. So, for example, you've spent decades now studying personal development. I've spent not quite as long, but a lot of time studying marketing and invested, literally tens of thousands of pounds, never mind the hours in that. But I think even after doing that, a lot of coaches struggle to charge appropriately because we're stuck in this time for money exchange. So if I spend an hour with you, helping you make some breakthroughs, I should only be charging for the hour. That's just not right. But what we should be doing is charging for the breakthrough. And I remember when we finished one of I think it was the first Inner Circle that we did for your weight loss program, you invited everybody down to your house because it was a UK-based group. You invited everybody down to your house.
Yeah.
And Hannah and your mum cooked some amazing food from Hannah's cookbook.
Yeah.
But we also took that opportunity to interview all of the ladies in that room. And we asked them, what's this been worth to you? And I remember there was one lady called Sue, and she said, this has been worth £10,000. I would have paid £10,000 for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to remember when we're coaching people. I've had instances whereby one of my mentors has literally given me one line, one piece of advice, one sentence, and it's completely shifted my results. Now, should I be paying him for that 10-second sentence, which is probably worth about 20p in terms of time?
Yeah.
Or should I be paying him for the tens of thousands of pounds additional revenue that's brought in? So it's a shift in mindset. It's not about time, it's about the transformation that we offer.
Yeah, and when you say about people not knowing the value in what they have, I think that's true. But I also think it's even more true they don't know the value in who they are. And that's where, like you said, your business is only going to grow at the rate at which you grow. It's taken me a long time actually from a speaking point of view, to charge what I charge. And sometimes people come to us directly as opposed to going through a speaker agency. And I'm the one who often has to say, they say, what's your fee? And I tell them, and sometimes I'm going, really? But I know what people pay other people to speak. And I think it's only when we see the value in who we are and what we do that we can do something truly awesome, which is what you're doing. So in terms of what you're doing now, and I know you and I are talking about doing some work together again, which I'm sure we will, because I'm getting ready for this new season of my life and ready to offer more value and just more effective tools and strategies to really help people. But what have you been doing for the last few years with the work that you're doing, apart from still running your salsa classes?
Yeah, so the salsa classes I've managed to sort of, I was doing 3 weeks and now I just do one a week. So that's been good. It means I can spend more time on other things. And basically what I did is I created a blueprint of what you and I did together. So from a marketing point of view and from a delivery point of view, I created a blueprint. And, that was an offer to established coaches who, like yourself, already had a big following. They've already had coaching clients. But what I realize is that only represents a really small percentage of coaches out there. I think 64% of coaches never even sign up a paying client. And only about, I think it's 13% make enough income from their coaching to be able to leave their job. And then, you're in the top 5% who manage to make a decent income from a coaching business. So what I've been doing just recently is thinking about how I can serve the startup coaches who are great coaches. They've got something really impactful to offer, but they've never been taught how to market their business. So that's my focus now. I've got a program called Clients from Scratch, which is a 7-step process, but it still is based on the same premise that you and I worked on, which is about providing a transformation to a non-paying client in advance so that we can overcome this low trust, high skepticism by providing value and transformation in advance. So then when you decide to make an offer, there's a very high chance that the person's going to enroll. So I've been teaching that system to some new coaches recently, been going really well. And so that's my focus at the moment.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it's quite ironic because I suppose years ago, being good at what you did would often be enough, I suppose, or it could be enough. But now you can be great at what you do, but if you don't get your marketing right, I just think, Paul, there's never been so many people in the world that are making a noise about something. There's just so many people who have got something to say and they're doing their best to say it and maybe investing in getting nice visuals and putting content out there on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Threads and LinkedIn. And unless you have really thought about what your offering is and what's in it for people, honestly, I would just say good luck. Good luck to you. And I know that the only reason I've had the success that I've had is because I've worked with some really good marketers. And I probably only know maybe 3 or 4 that I think, no, these are people you need to talk to, because not only do they know what they're doing, but they also have the capacity to help you. And if they didn't have the capacity, they wouldn't take you on as a client, because I know agencies take people on and they don't have the capacity. They really, really don't. And I know you and I will have a lot more conversations and we'll break a lot more of this down to help people who want to get this right. And it's that thing, that the statistics that you gave about coaches is very alarming. And I wonder how many coaches there are in the world who genuinely want clients, but just haven't got this marketing element of it right. What do you think about that, Paul?
Well, it's the missing chapter. If any coach goes on any coaching course, whether it's a neuro-linguistic programming course or whether it's a course on the course that I became qualified on was a business development course. So I'm a qualified business development coach, and the syllabus did not include one module on how to market your business, which is just, for me, is madness, because business development, the core two issues or two aspects of that is getting clients and keeping clients. Nothing on those. So I think it's the missing module in nearly all coaching programs. But once people can fill that gap in their skill level, then they've got a much better chances of succeeding as a coach. But I think the landscape has changed. The landscape used to be, here's a free report, now buy my coaching program. Here's a series of 3 videos, now buy my coaching program. Here's a webinar. That isn't work. It's still working, but nowhere near as well. Number one, because everybody's doing it. But number two, because the amount of skepticism has gone through the roof and the amount of trust has gone down. So we need to get on the other side of that curve. And the only way we do that is by proving to people that we can help transform their lives by transforming their lives before they become a client.
Yeah, it's definitely where the market is at this moment in time. And it's funny because if people don't do that work, again, you are seriously reducing the risks of bringing people into your world who don't know you. I mean, you've got people who you do know, that's one market. And then there's another market, which is much bigger, which is all the people that don't know you. How are they going to want to do business with you? But as you're saying, it's offering transformation and value. Can you just, before we wrap this up, can you tell us about some of the things you've been able to do with some of your clients? Obviously, I've been one of those clients, and you revolutionized the playing field for me in terms of results and in terms of income. Can you tell us about a couple of other examples of people that you've been able to do that with?
Sure. I mean, the next example after yourself was my better half, Elena. If you're going to use some skills, use them on yourself, and then use or help your family to improve things. So I helped Elena. Elena started off teaching Spanish on a one-to-one in the evenings and weekends. Obviously, there's a limit to that. So then she started teaching in groups. She started teaching like 20 people at a time in a little room upstairs in the Strand. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah.
And then that pretty much reached capacity. And then she created an online program called Spanish Class Profits that taught her process of teaching in groups to other Spanish-speaking people who wanted to use their language skills to earn some additional income. And there's lots of other examples of other coaches who have, done similar things, just taken what's in their head and created either an online program out of it or just improved their ability to market their skills and their services to the people that they represent. One of the biggest things that I found has been a struggle for coaches, though, isn't so much the coaching side of things. Most coaches are great coaches. One of the biggest challenges they have is overcoming the limiting beliefs that stop them from doing the things they need to do in order to create awareness about their services. And this is something that you've always been amazing at. In fact, I think you're probably one of the best coaches in the UK, if not in the world, at putting out content that helps the people that you represent. Because at some point you've got over any limiting beliefs about that.
Yeah, I most definitely have. And I know who I am and I know what I'm here to do. And I think deep down most people do, and in terms of, you're a coach because you want to help people. That's who you are. And I'd never if that is who you are, don't let the fact that you haven't got your marketing right or the fact that you haven't got many clients or any clients stop you. Just figure out a way to start from wherever you are. And that's one of the things you do in helping people, coaches, start from scratch to build something. Don't give up because it is challenging, but there are really great ways to do it. And Paul, I know that's where your skill set most definitely lies. So thank you for. What's the best way for people to make contact with you?
So if you go to paulsprocess.com, there's like a link tree. There's a few links on there that can allow you to get in contact with me through Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or my website.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Pete.
I'll see you again soon.
See you soon, my friend.